Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the December 10th, 2025 meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. The first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and I will declare a quorum present. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which is followed by a moment of silent reflection. Please rise. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda finalizes the proposed actions of the meeting, A, November 12th, 2025 minutes, and B, list of claims dated December 3rd, 2025. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We didn't get buttons to approve or make a motion. Oh, I'm not on there.
Yeah.
All right, so we had a motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Ms. Leering. Sorry, bear with us. We're trying out some new software, so. All right, is there any discussion? Otherwise, please proceed to vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. All right, next on our agenda is audience comments, agenda and non-agenda items. The presiding officer will limit speaking time for non-agenda items to 1 minute and items noticed on the agenda to 5 minutes. Ms. Hefter, did we have anyone wishing to speak? We do not. So that concludes audience comments. Next, we move on to our action items. Action item A is Class B intoxicating liquor and Class B fermented malt license. Limited liability company, The Approach LLC. Agent name, Tyler Ludke. Doing business as The Approach. Business address, 170 North Prairie Road. And our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you, President Brault. The Approach LLC is requesting a Class B liquor license at 170 North Prairie Road, which is located inside of Ledgeview Bowling Alley. The Approach has a separate entrance, bathroom, storage area, and a designated staff that meets the state requirements to have their own alcohol license. Background checks were done on the applicant, and city staff and alcohol license committee recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Yep. And so just to clarify for everybody, we're still pushing our buttons. If you'd like to speak, we don't have that function on the new app we're using. But Mr. Schussler, I believe your mic should be on if you'd like to make your comment.
It is.
Okay. Sorry.
At the committee, these are for the golf simulators, am I right?
That is correct.
So, very positive thing for the community.
Wonderful. Great to hear it. All right. I'm not seeing any other discussion, so I will entertain a motion. Sorry, Mr. Heisler. All right. Motion by Mr. Godfrey and second by Mr. Schussler.
We're going to have to go Mr. Heisler.
Oh,
Okay.
technology. All right, is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next is item B, resolution number 9213, a resolution approving and confirming election officials for the 2026-2027 election term. Again, our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you again. State statutes requires the governing body to appoint election officials for a 2-year term. This term will be from January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. Election officials are required to attend training within this 2-year cycle. The list provided to you includes party recommendations along with reappointments. The City of Fond du Lac is fortunate to have dedicated election officials that work to ensure that our elections are fair, accessible, and transparent. I would be happy to answer any questions and recommend approval of these appointments.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Heisler. And if you're using the app, just make sure you're clicked on that green box. We have a second by Mr. Mullen. Is there any other discussion? I would just like to offer a thank you to all of our poll workers and everyone who helps our elections move smoothly, because it's a big job, so thank you. All right, with that, let's proceed to vote. And that has passed unanimously. Item C is resolution number 9214, a resolution making an appointment to the Downtown Fond du Lac Partnership Board. Our introduction is by our city manager, Mr. Moore.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. We've got 3 people to nominate tonight. Miss Angel is the GM of the Retlaw. Miss Bolson is the owner of Gallery and Frame, and Ben Myers, probably a name new to you. He's a fairly new property owner in the downtown, but has been very active, and so I recommend all 3 of them for appointment.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Schussler and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Item D is resolution number 9215. And that is a resolution making reappointments to the Alcohol License Committee and Housing Authority Board. Again, our introduction is by our city manager, Mr. Moore.
Thanks again. No details needed here. You've approved these 4 people before, other than to say they've served well, and I recommend their reappointments.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Zimmerman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Item E is resolution number 9216, a resolution approving the 2026 Fond du Lac Area Transit Title VI Civil Rights Policy. Our introduction is by our new transit manager, and I am not going to try to pronounce her name because I don't want to butcher.
Dreyer, Nicole Dreyer.
So Ms. Dreyer, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Tonight on the agenda is the approval and adoption of the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Title VI is more than just a legal requirement. It is a promise that everyone in our community, regardless of race, color, or national origin, has equal access to the services our city and the transit department provide. As a recipient of the federal funding for our transportation program, we are responsible for upholding this promise. The updated Title VI demonstrates our commitment to fairness, equality, and accessible service for all residents. This includes providing meaningful access to individuals with limited English proficiency, maintaining non-discriminatory policies, and responding effectively to complaints when concerns arise. Adopting the updated Title VI supports our mission to serve every member of our community with dignity and fairness.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Dreyer? I'm not. Oh, Mr. Mullen.
Question, I'd just like to welcome you to Fond du Lac and hope you enjoy it here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Ms. Leering. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, item F, right, that's where we are? Okay, yes. Item F is resolution number 9217, a resolution approving the application to the Wisconsin Emergency Management for the Pre-Disaster Flood Resilience Grant Program, and our introduction is by our city engineer, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Rault. As stated, this is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a application to the Wisconsin Emergency Management Department in the state for grant funding to study certain areas of the city for flood resilience. This is just the grant application, which would cover 75%, up to 75% of the cost of a flood study if we were to be awarded the grant. So engineering recommends approval of the resolution, and we would then proceed with submitting the grant application later this week.
All right, great, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Heisler and a second by Mr. Zimmerman. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Item G is ordinance number 3820, an ordinance amending Chapter 630 Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac to add parking restrictions on West Bank Street. The Advisory Parking and Traffic Board recommendation is to deny. Introduction is by City Engineer Mr. Johnson.
Thank you again. This ordinance is the proposed ordinance would be to provide a no parking zone along the south side of West Bank Street from North Macy Street to North Main Street. The requester, Mr. Lalambard, made the request because his feeling was that emergency vehicles were not able to traverse up and down West Bank Street because of parking on both sides of the road. I believe he's reached out to several council members in the last few months. We did have the Advisory Parking and Traffic Board meeting last month to go over this. The requestor, obviously he was in attendance and in favor of this proposed resolution, but we also had, I believe, 5 to 6 property owners along this stretch of West Bank Street, and they were all opposed to the additional parking restrictions. They felt that there was no need to basically restrict parking along the street. That being said, because of the overwhelming support to not have additional parking restrictions along this stretch of West Bank Street, engineering and advisory parking and traffic do not support the additional parking restrictions. If there's any questions, I'll feel free to answer them.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? I am not seeing any, and I would just like to say, I would like to just, oh, sorry. Oh, so there, yeah, the button on the app doesn't actually show up anything on the screen, so you still need to hit your button. And so, Mr. Schutzler, you are recognized. Sorry.
I'm a committee member, and I was at the meeting, and Mr. Lallenbarb spoke very passionately. People parking interfering with his driveway. A lot of misbehavior on the street on the part of people causing him trouble, and I sympathize with him. But like it says in the report, and I think I'm echoing the comments of the committee was a 5-to-1 vote against. This is a pretty new stretch of road built in 2010. And as Mr. Johnson's report says, it's a sufficient width to allow for parking on both sides of the road and still allow for two-way traffic down the road. Then between November 15 and March 15, the winter restrictions are in effect where it's on the even days, even side and all that. So that's there. This is a street that has a lot of renters. I mean, people have to have a place to park. This is a regulation street. And so what everyone asked for at the committee was, and we had an officer there, if there could be a period of stepped-up enforcement, just like you do when speeding gets out of hand, like near me on National Avenue when people are passing me at 45 miles an hour. You know, you call the police department and you ask for a little temporary step-up of enforcement, and I think that should be tried here before. This is not a good precedent, I don't think, to have a regulation street impose this type of restriction. I sympathize with Mr. Lallenbarb, but if people start getting tickets for not being within 4 feet of the driveway like they're supposed to be, I really believe that his situation should improve. Is a vote yes, a vote to deny?
So we haven't actually made that motion, but that's what I would, if we want to follow the recommendations of the Parking and Traffic Board, I would recommend making a motion that is to deny the ordinance, and then you would vote yes to deny if you want to, or no if you don't agree with the denial. So, does that make, I know we've had this discussion before, so,
Well, since that's the way the committee handled it, I would think that's how we'd handle it.
right,
So I don't want to prematurely make that motion if people want to talk.
okay. Yeah, we do have a few more in the queue, but, Ms. Leering.
It was actually
Oh. Okay. All right, Mr. Mullen.
Same thing. I just wanted to clarify exactly what we're voting on. I'm in favor of what traffic has decided, and we just want to make sure we word it correctly.
All right. All right, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Schisler for providing the perspective, being the board member who was there, because I believe I was the first council member that Mr. Lombard reached out to. And so initially, I got his point of view, and I got to see, there were some issues with parking, so I think some increased enforcement might really help with that. I'd like to thank Mr. Johnson for the work that went into, bringing this to parking and traffic and having the discussions, but also ultimately knowing that a number of other residents showed up and said, you know what, we don't want to see this restriction, and knowing that there'd be hardships for parking. It's a tough issue, but I would also like to say I'd prefer to go with the recommendation currently of the Parking and Traffic Board, since I think that's the way we need to go. So, okay, so we are not able to make a motion to deny in the app. So if somebody would like to make a motion, Ms. Leering? All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Leering and a second by Mr. Mullen to deny the ordinance. So if you vote aye, you are saying yes to the denial. With that, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. Okay. All right, and that passes unanimously. All right, item H is ordinance number 3821, an ordinance amending Chapter 720 of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac related to bulk requirements and permitted uses in residential districts. The recommendation by the Plan Commission is to approve, and our introduction is by our City Attorney, Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you, President Brout. I'm filling in for Diane tonight. So this is all work that she did, and it came out of the housing study and strategic plan that was intended to help facilitate housing development throughout the community. And all these various changes are intended to allow for more housing, the ability to build more housing in more of the districts. So that's what you have in front of you. So it's going to affect several districts, but it's all, again, intended to help with the housing creation.
All right, are there any questions from council? Mr. Mullen?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little clarification. Most of what these changes are reductions in the minimum lot size. That's going for various types. That's part of the idea of that was to help with infill, so that vacant properties might be developed that otherwise wouldn't be. It also affects new developments in that you can do a little higher density, hopefully making it a little easier to create workforce housing. So that's basically the rationale behind this, was to make housing available, especially less expensive housing.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, please proceed to vote. All right, and that passes unanimously. Item I is ordinance number 3822, an ordinance amending Chapter 630 Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac to add and remove stop signs at various locations. The recommendation by Advisory Parking and Traffic Board is to approve, and again, our introduction is by our city engineer, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Brault. This particular ordinance has been brought by engineering and traffic. As you've probably seen within the city, there's been several new subdivisions being constructed and completed this year. And as part of that construction in these new roads, there needs to be new stop signs provided as per the plans. But we have to add those to the code. So this particular request is to add new stop signs on various streets within the city, not only for some of the subdivisions that have been recently created, but there was a couple that were done by a previous development that also needed to be added to the code. And that being said, there's also 2 stop signs that need to be removed from the code because of the construction that occurred back, I believe, in 2023 with the Highway 23 reconstruction out on the east side of town. So that being said, engineering and traffic supports the addition and/or subtraction of the stop signs from the code. If there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from council? I am not seeing any, so I will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Ms. Leering and a second by Mr. Zimmerman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, that ends our action items, so we will move on to our presentation of input items. We have the City Year in Review presented by City Manager Mr. Moore.
Thanks very much. You can tell by the audience, this is greatly anticipated. That's true. But we will have it on demand for posterity, and hopefully, it will give you some good reference points. Maybe during this, some opportunities to ask questions, make comment, et cetera. So let's just start with what I'm communicating here on the upper left. It's the beginning of the story of the year. This is our 24th meeting of the year together. We've done a lot of work throughout the year, a lot of success. I'm going to try to communicate that to you because you're a big part of that. So what did U.S. News and World Report say about Fond du Lac? It said that of the over 1,800 municipalities in Wisconsin, Fond du Lac is the 12th best community to live in. It said that it's the 7th best community to retire in. And you've seen those polls. They've got a number of metrics. That's really not important, but I thought you would appreciate knowing that, that's pretty impressive given, the number of communities in the state. Maggie, we can go to the next slide. Unless it's Arlene. Arlene, thank you. Well, we have Rachel Fuller here. Week and a half on the job. Super excited to have her at the library. And I will say that the leadership team this year's done great work. Just ask them. They'll tell you. No, but it's been a really good year. I think you had a good opportunity this summer to have some great back and forth with them. Diane left about a week and a half ago, right before Thanksgiving. And I put a date up there because that's kind of my optimistic perspective, my goal to have backfill by the end of the first quarter. And I wrote you about, where we are in that with interviews and recruitment and such. But I just want to say thanks to the leadership team and a big welcome to Rachel because we've got a great team. And I will say that the people that we've interviewed so far for the community development director have all made mention of the group dynamic amongst the directors, how impressed they are, and maybe a little intimidated too. Arlene, let's go to the next one. So these are some big picture topics I wanted to touch on. As we move through this, I'm not going to read every word to you. You can read. I'll pause on occasion to let you read. But again, equalized value of the city's real estate increased substantially. That now is about 7 years in a row. That's a very good sign. You've heard Tricia say, and I've said, and others have said too, that the 2026 budget is certainly, in our opinion, the most fiscally sound budget we've had in many a year. I feel really good about where we are with our bond rating, our reserves, our plan for our operating budget, our capital improvement plan, everything. So thank you for that. We've got labor agreements in place across the board long-term. That's great. We're one of the few employers that I know of whose healthcare premiums will remain flat between 25 and 26. So that's a real benefit for our employees. You know, and you were part of the conversation, we reset the organization's wage structure across the board. I think that was a great outcome. That goes into effect in a couple of weeks with the first of the year. And we reset the city's property values with the revaluation. Unemployment's still super low, historically low. And lastly, I'd mention that although when I talk about room tax, I'm using that as a proxy to say that the hotel business is pretty good. The room tax is an indicator of what's come back to Destination Lake Winnebago as a result of room stays. But we've only been over $1 million a couple times ever. And so that's a really good sign for our tourism in the area. Next, please. So who's KD? Kat Duvenek. She doesn't know I put that up there, but she missed the meeting tonight for her kids' concert. She said this when we were talking, and I thought, you know what, I need to communicate this on behalf of all of us to you. She was very genuine when she said this, and she was very proud of the work her department had done this year. Next, Arlene. So we're always focused on growing the community, growing the tax base, growing the quality. And you see here are 3 priorities to do so: public safety, prosperity, and the work we do with infrastructure and our expansion of recreational assets. And I've got some information about those things to talk about. Next, please, Arlene. Next. So since Rachel's here, after a week and a half, I wanted to give her a ton of credit for the great work the library's done this year. She wrote a book, had a great summer reading program. I mean, this has been great. No, yeah, I called John Mark a couple weeks ago and said, hey, John Mark, we've put this presentation together. You had a really great year. Thank you for all you did. And thank you because you authorized, I don't know if you remember, but you authorized the money in ARPA to publish this book, or we wouldn't have been able to do it as efficiently as we did. Chapter 52 has been around 10 years, and I wanted to mention that it was about then we made a decision that we just couldn't tolerate blight. If we saw blight, we had to do something about it. That building was blight. And so when we had the opportunity in talking with the library needing to expand, we asked City Council, can we buy that building and renovate it, which we did. And now 10 years later, it's still active. A lot of circulation at the library. A couple of kudos I wanted to share with you. This growth in the Libby ebook app, 125,000 ebooks. I mean, we wouldn't have said that 5 years ago. That's literally just new benefit for everybody who uses the library. It's pretty awesome. And then last thing that's new, and I know that you heard Lori Burgess talk about this, she's super proud of the experience passes because they're maxed out all the time. Literally, people want to use those to get into a variety of places for free. It's really a nice thing. Next, please. So we had some places open. The Nori's on the west side of town. I think some of you were there for the grand opening of Wendy's. Tom's Drive-In just is breaking ground this week, just next to Backyard Grill. And then I put the big picture of the beer company up because I don't know how many times over the years I heard, why don't we have a brewery? If only we had a brewery. Well, the city didn't put money into this, but, you know, as a result of some support, partnership, now there's a brewery. And I think that's a really good outcome because you can remember that building, I think, as you drove on 4th Street. It needed something. And so, you know, it was like a 2 birds with 1 stone situation, getting that renovated. Next, please, Arlene. On the right there is Main Street when it was about halfway done, getting ready to be paved. I want to call out a few things. Big kudos to the water superintendent and the water utility because we're really accelerating now our replacement of lead service lines. You can see we're almost at 500 this year. Next year we'll be at 700 for the summer. That's really, really a good pace now. What we're doing over at the wastewater treatment facility is just fantastic. I mean, it is setting the standard. People are traveling to Fond du Lac to see the wastewater treatment plant because of what's going on over there currently and also what's being added with the biosolids dryer and the purification, the gas purification system. And, you know, it's thanks to you that we were able to make that investment because that's one of the biggest investments we've made in a long, long time in that plant. And it's really impressive. A lot of awards have been won by that team. Thank Paul and Chris and everybody, Adam Schmidt, for all the coordination that went into Main Street. You know, it was a big undertaking. It was easy to put off over the decades because there's a lot of pain and inconvenience involved, but I think it came out pretty good and it looks nice. And, you know, we won't have to do that again for a while. You may remember that in the budget memo I wrote to you about the barriers that we wanted to start using. We identified quite some time ago that there's a threat associated with mass gatherings of people on a street. There's no doubt about that. How to best protect against that threat, we've determined is to use these barriers, and you've seen some of them out. They're the yellow accordion-looking things. Thanks to you, we're going to buy more of them in 2026 so that we'll be able to button up every event that happens on our streets in the city, and I'm really happy about that. We've replaced a ton of lights, street lights, and that saves a lot of money and a lot of energy when you implement LED. And then lastly, I would say that now, with the delivery of our new buses, our bus fleet is as new as it's been. It's incredibly well maintained, and you know Nicole's on top of that. But it's really great we're able to get the buses in. Just parenthetically, incredibly long lead time on those things. So some of those were ordered 4 or 5 years ago. So that's really good for the community, especially people who need those buses. Next, Darlene. Yeah, so the top right, another thing that I was often asked, I'm sure you were too, you all often wondered, when is that Home Depot ever going to be something? And all these years, Home Depot, the company, was paying its lease. There wasn't really any motivation for the building owner to do anything. Well, that lease came to an end, and then that building sold, and now it's being redeveloped. There's for sure 5 retailers, maybe 6 going in there, but that's what you see if you drive by there right now. It's being completely repackaged for retail. And then you see we've had a couple of other retail openings this year that appear to be quite popular with people, so that's really good, and a good use of those spaces too. Next, Arlene. Once again, super impressive in the police department. We're on a path again for accreditation, reaccreditation. That's really impressive. Only if you lived it in the police department could you know what a painful preparation that is. And and they knocked it out of the park. So that's fantastic. I will say that another thing that's really impressive with the police department is the way it has embraced its role in supporting people that are unhoused. And I think that's good for all of you to know and reflect on, because I think in a lot, you will read in a lot of places there's conflict between law enforcement and homelessness and trying to enforce the rules that are on the books. And we haven't had those problems here because our police department leadership has an attitude of support and caring and empathy, and that's really been a good thing. That third point's really important too. What that's referring to is businesses that serve alcohol. So the police department cut the failure rate in half. That's through education, that's through mentoring, that's through a whole lot of hand-holding. That's a really good outcome. And then in the next point, what we're talking about here is we're not stopping people just to stop people. We're stopping people in a traffic stop situation because we want to find any drugs or guns that are in the cars that we might be stopping. And so that's why there's been a real focus in that area. And then I highlighted that word training without going into a lot of details. You can rest assured and be proud of the police department that you have, that they're incredibly well-trained, always paying attention to training and making sure that all the senior people are trained as well as all the new. Next, Darlene. So this year we added a third hospital. So 2 years ago, Aurora expanded significantly. Now we have SSM expanding, but I show a picture here of ThedaCare because it's built from the ground up. It's incredibly nice addition, and from what they've told me, all their forecasts for their patient load are essentially coming to fruition. So that's been a really nice outcome. They've gotten off to a good start. In the middle there is the picture of what is ongoing, about $1.5 million investment over at Marion University to retool that ball field so that it's all artificial turf so that rain is no longer an enemy. And then on the right, that is a picture of Sam Myers' building on the bottom right before he got the grass planted, and then on the top right there, right after he opened it. And I point that out because the site was blighted, and the little old building in the front, it sure looked like blight when it was over on Mars Street. So again, really, really upgraded both the building and that site. Next, Darlene. And by the way, I've only got about 40 more slides and then we'll be out of here. No, but I mean, we got to celebrate, right? If we don't do it, who will? So fire rescue. Again, they had the accreditation team here, and fire rescue did everything they needed to do to successfully complete that, and they were recommended for accreditation. So that's a great outcome. The 4th ambulance now is completely integrated into the operation, so it's on duty full-time, around the clock. We've had a lot of good acknowledgement and recognition in fire rescue, and I just noted the one here with the Emergency Response Heroes Award. That's very impressive, and I think you've seen how the Red Cross, when they've come to visit, the kind of accolades they share with our fire rescue, and I wanted to call that out because of that. And then I thank you and fire rescue for being attentive to this conversation about another fire station. You know, that's a work in progress, but you authorized us the opportunity to do some design work in 2026, so we'll keep moving forward on that, and I feel good about where we are on that as well. Next, Darlene. A lot of acronyms. These are all Trish's acronyms. But really, really important. ERP has dominated a team of about 10 people so substantially the last few months. It's amazing that they're able to do their full-time job. The amount of commitment to training and deploying that is impressive, and it's going to make us a better organization for the long haul, and that's where we're making the investment. Tricia and her team did a great job with the audit and the ACFR, and I mentioned that it's not really, fancy, but it's really important to be that successful in those areas. It's great that we're recognized with certificates of achievement every year for the ACFR. And lastly, I'll mention that Tricia and Paul, Travis, and the team really were attentive in figuring out how to acquire a number of different revenue streams via the Safe Drinking Water Loan so that it's the lead services expenses aren't all borne by City of Fond du Lac ratepayers. So they have acquired external funding for that, which has been great. On the next, Arlene, I just wanted to highlight some things with our parks because we've made such substantial investments in the parks, and these are some of the payoffs. So we installed 3 playgrounds in 2025. They all seem to be quite popular. Pavilion parking lot, sort of a non-sexy effort, but sure came out great and added a lot of parking and a lot of access. I really like how the bridge came out too. We got that done just in time for the holiday lighting. That was great. And then this one I wanted to talk about just a little bit, the carousel building. So in the last year in the capital improvement plan, we have a carousel building because those old horses are like antiques. They are one-of-a-kind things, and they've got to be hand-painted, et cetera. And so Dave Whalen owns those horses and advised us that the weather and the climate's just too hard on them, and they need protection. And so we're building a building to allow the merry-go-round, the carousel, to stay in place and not have to be disassembled and moved every year. And that has to be done, that's a custom design, and I feel good about having that done by Memorial Day. And we're on, that's going to be a big improvement. Maybe not noticeable to people, but we'll know that we will have preserved a real historical, a real history there with the carousel. Some other things, we have over the years been investing more in Hamilton Park. We felt like that was somewhat of an underserved area, and Hamilton Park now it's got a great, it's got bathrooms, but it's got a great playground. It's got a lot of amenities that it didn't have. Redid the tennis courts over at Buttermilk Creek. Really nice walking trail, Taylor Park now, and new basketball courts over there too. And then maybe, you may not have noticed it, but there's a gazebo out in the middle of the lake at Ledgeview Corporate Center, and we had that redone this year. It's all repainted like new, so that came out nicely. And then a couple pictures over to the right I wanted to mention. Diane's not here to take the accolade, but she really was the leader in getting all these signs designed and getting them deployed. And I think they came out great all around the trail. And I put the grandstand, the stage in here because you recall the city was the biggest donor to that project. And it went in, it opened this year, and that's a great thing, quite popular too. Next, please. I wanted to give Kat Duveneck some accolades. They've had a lot of work this year. There's some ARPA money sprinkled in here, but I'm not going to call it out specifically. I just wanted to highlight that we've done all we need to do now to have our underground fiber completely updated and serving everywhere we need it to serve. And then we did a lot of work with Wi-Fi to make it better in the downtown. And we finished up all the cameras that we wanted to upgrade. And also to make them all the same. Over the years, when we needed another camera here or there, we might go to Best Buy, we might go whatever. We had a collection of a wide variety. It was not very good for maintenance, and now we've got a uniform branding, and and warranties, et cetera. And so the IT did a great job with all of that. Next, please, Kat. Or, pardon me, Arlene. Couple things I wanted to call out in the downtown. I've mentioned the word blight. The corner of Division and Main had one piece of blight left. You know, on the left of that food hall picture is the Retlaw, and the background is 18 Hands. So those buildings were totally renovated. This food hall is about 90% done. It's going to be done completely in March, and we have identified a team to help manage that with us and for us, which is a great outcome. And as you drive on Main Street, people may ask you, what's going in there next to it? That's the demo there in the middle picture. That's going to be a food court, outdoor food court that ties into the food hall. And there's an elevator that we've put in to get people upstairs in the food hall too, if they need that kind of help. But that's going to be really nice. That's a first-class renovation. And then Sam Myers project, you know, that building wasn't quite blight on the top right, but it was headed that way. And you know, Sam bought that building. You may recall we're partnering financially pretty substantially in that project. That's a good thing. And so the renovation's fully underway now. I was over that way today, and what they've done just in the back part of the building is changed it completely. So there's a lot of great work going on there to create more residences. Next, Arlene. We're almost to the end. So 4 new neighborhoods. The ones on the left are between Highway V and Martin. If you drive on Highway V down towards the BP, Park Ave used to just stub right there. You couldn't go anywhere if you took a right. Now you can go halfway across to the water tower. That's what those pictures are. And so there'll be houses built out there, duplexes, single family, et cetera. And then on the right, the picture on the bottom is of the new Lynn Avenue. It's open, so you can drive from Highway K, which is in the foreground, back there toward Aurora. You can get through there now. And so Roberts Homes is building houses in there. You probably see a handful of them there with just the Tyvek wrap on them that have come out of the ground and they're being finished. And then up above that is a new street that goes way back towards those trees. That's in front of Holy Family. So that neighborhood's being developed by Addison Jones. And you'll recall you authorized us to be financially involved in those projects too. And the great thing is, it worked just the way we said. So we were going to make investments in infrastructure. We got the work done. Now they're building the houses. That's a really good outcome. Next, Arlene. So we've got a few things we're paying attention to. This is not an all-inclusive list, kind of the top 5. Kind of self-explanatory. You know, that we're going to keep working on housing construction. I can tell you that we've had a really positive conversation with one developer who has submitted for tax credits for property on Police Memorial Drive. If you can picture where SSM is off of Camelot, and Police Memorial Drive goes from there over to Martin, there's a farm field there. So that's of interest to perhaps put in about 60 units there. So we'd like to see that. And then the Feeve property, that parking lot we've talked to you any number of times about. We've got a conversation right after the first of the year with a potential developer too. So those are 2 things that I think are showing real potential. And you know, both of those will address affordability as well, which is important. And then, you know, Chief Goldstein can talk to you all day long about drug abuse and domestic violence, and Chief Garrettson can too, because he's, you know, going to help people that are suffering with that. And then, you know, we've talked about homelessness a number of times. I will say that we had a get-together over the Catherine Drexel facility a couple of weeks ago with the whole team that's involved. And I've never seen such good communication, good sharing of ideas, et cetera. That was really impressive. People are really thinking, they're really aligned on supporting people who are having challenges that lead to homelessness. And the warming shelter's been running under capacity so far this season, so they're doing great work too. And I have to give an accolade to the Holy Family community because, you know, they had the priest on the roof. And I think it was over the course of 4 freezing hours that they raised $60,000, just like that. They went from 0 to 60. They had one of those thermometers where you color it in. And long before it was over with, it was colored in. It was just people bringing checks nonstop. So that was really, really great. So anyways, warming shelter's in good shape, doing good work. Next, please. I always talk about these things just to remind everybody. Anytime I talk to people, we had some school kids in here a couple weeks ago, and I asked them to guess how many gallons of water we pump out of the ground every day, and they're like 1,000, 1,000,000. You know, the guy who said 1,000,000 thought he was being crazy, but no, it's 5 million every day. So, and the thing that is really interesting about that is all the maintenance that has to go on to make that happen, right? And our water utility does great work, but everything there is pretty self-explanatory. And, we do that every day. Next, please. You've seen this before. This is the updated version from Edelman. I always look at this because it keeps you humble. When asked, people will say that folks like me that are in government are generally not competent and we are unethical. And, what I would ask of you is to remind people that, okay, maybe that's true other places, but that, you're the board of directors, you're the city council of an organization that is, operating in the upper right quadrant where we've got competence and ethics, not the bottom left quadrant. But in any event, we see this every day. We've got to, make sure we're always communicating well with people, because the tendency is to believe the worst and not to be able to trust too much. And we're trying to overcome that all the time with good performance. Next, and I think last. Any questions, thoughts? I mean, you all were a big part of that, so thank you for that. And I hope it makes you feel good. We had a good year.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. And
Welcome.
I want to say welcome to Rachel for sitting through your first council meeting and council presentation, and welcome. I will open it up to council for questions or comments. And remember, you hit your button on your microphone, not on the computer app. Mr. Schisler?
Don't forget that the RDA got 146 Sheboygan Street. Sold, and if you drive by, it's busy, busy, busy.
Mr. Schuessler, some stuff I can't do everything. I can't say. But yes, I mean, that renovation looks good.
Thank you, RDA.
Yes, yes.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? I'll jump in, and if anybody has anything, please just hit your button. But I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I think seeing the past year laid out is kind of shocking how much has been done in a good way. There's been some incredible projects, some painful projects like Main Street and the Proman Drive Bridge. How many people were complaining about they couldn't do their loops through the park this summer, and just so many things were done. So I just want to say thank you to all of our department heads and to your staff, all the city staff, for everything that has been accomplished this year. It's just pretty amazing, and it just makes you feel good about living here.
Ms. Broad, I got to say something. It's funny because, we've been renovating the PD while operating the PD, and this last phase caused the chief to have to relocate. And he really had to take one for the team because he relocated into an office that was just slightly larger than he is. And, he and the assistant chiefs are kind of tucked away in these little rooms. But yes, I mean, so I didn't mention things like that, but even things like that going on inside the buildings to, make those things nice is good.
All right, Mr. Heisler.
Thank you again for the presentation, Joe. Sure. Lengthy, but worth it. That's the summary. It was really, really great. And I just wanted to also say thanks again to all the department heads, because doing the budget every year, man, I don't know how you guys do it. You got this really tough financial constraints, and for that budget to be as good as it was and continue to provide all the great things that it does, I mean, that was honestly mind-blowing, because we're going through these budget books for months and months and months, and we're doing the minutia of digging through projects and all that sort of stuff. And then to see a presentation where the budget ends and all this stuff comes out of the budget, and all the things that we do on a day-to-day service continues. It's pretty amazing stuff. So kudos to all of you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, I am not seeing anybody hitting their buttons, so no more questions or comments. So thank you again, Mr. Moore. Thank you to all of our department heads and staff on a great year. And with that, that ends our input items. So I also just want to take some time to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope you have a Happy New Year, because it's our last meeting of 2025. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. And you can. Second. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Zimmerman and a second by Ms. Leering. This is not debatable. Please proceed to vote. And make sure to get into the place in your. All right, we are adjourned.